This is what we all feel, let's just not deny it. Something pulls and it tears in the deepest place. This is what we all know, why must we still fight it? It's time to open our eyes and acknowledge the writing on the wall.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us for today's video. Today we're going to take a look at what we did interseeding cover crops for corn. We've got two irrigated circles for you and one dryland circle for you. So we're in western Kansas. We're extremely dry. From last July of 2021 to July of 2022, we've had 6 inches of precipitation. So that kind of gives you some perspective as to what we're looking at when we were looking at these irrigated circles as opposed to the dry land. And then I also want to cover in this video how our perspective has changed on interseeding cover crops and how it's gone from mainly focusing on trying to get supplemental grazing after corn harvest and increase the days of grazing, more to a soil health perspective and on building up the life and the biology within the microbes of our soil to be able to produce a healthier soil, healthier crops, and basically just a healthier system. So anyway, let's look at this field right now. Okay, this is the first field that we're at right now. This is our irrigated circle, and on both irrigated circles we did used our leftover mix from last year, which was primarily wheat based, but it had wheat, clovers, okra, cowpeas, and I believe we had daikon radishes in there. No, that African cabbage is what we had in that one. But anyway, this year we switched to annual ryegrass, and with the annual ryegrass we did that because the first year we did cereal rye. The cereal rye didn't overwinter well. The next year we did wheat. The wheat didn't overwinter at all. And so I went ahead and made the switch to annual ryegrass. I was hesitant at first because here I planted annual ryegrass one year and it didn't overwinter well. But maybe if this survives the canopy, then it will end up being fine, and we'll end up having a good response. But that's why we switched to the annual ryegrass. So let's go ahead and look at it right here. As we look down this row, this is kind of what I would like to see a lot of, is just the consistency in the plants in the rows. I guess you're not seeing it as much on this right hand side. It's kind of hard to see with the shadows, but this row is fairly thick all the way through there. Now we have a lot that will be like this, where the two rows are really consistent, and we'll have spots like this right here where the rows are kind of bare. Like you can see this one didn't have very many seeds come through there, and then we'll have spots like that where there's several plants in the row. Here's another row where it's a little bit shaded, but you can see, so this is wheat. You can see that wheat, like this time of year, looks like the wheat was a good choice because it gets up there and it starts to gets going. The problem with the wheat though is it dies out fairly quickly and you don't end up having a great response from the wheat. One that I didn't mention that's in both mixes that we always is a go-to for us is flax. That's the flax plant right there. Flax has really been awesome for us, and something that I'm gonna always have in every mix just because it responds well to the canopy. But anyway, that's what the mix looks like on this half of this circle. Let's look at the other half. Okay, here we are on the south half of the field, where we planted the mix that had the annual ryegrass in it. And this is some of the stuff I'm kind of frustrated with. If you get down and look at this row, I don't have a good stand here in this other part of it, this half of where the planter went through, and then it's kind of sparse on the cover crops on this side. So we're looking at getting a different setup with our drill. Right now we're doing a 520 John Deere disc drill where we dropped off every third row, and we're going to change that. So anyway, let's come over here to a different row. And immediately as I've been walking through this row, I'm not seeing a lot of annual ryegrass. There's some right here. You can see the difference in it and the wheat. It's a lot thinner down in there, and it hasn't quite grown up like the wheat has. Here we have some buckwheat right here. I really like having buckwheat in the mix. It gets really tall and then it falls over, and I believe it's either okra or cowpeas. Okra and cowpeas isn't something I use a lot in our mixes, so it's not one I'm quite as familiar with. But there's a daikon radish right there, and there's flax, and then you can see some clovers down in there. Red clover is definitely a staple that we're gonna have on these for quite some time. I did end up double planting one row through here, and I'm really liking the way that this is looking. So you got the 4 rows, one here and then 2 right here together, and then the 4th row right in here. But I really like the way that turned out, and as this grows, I think it's just gonna get thicker and thicker. Here's some more annual ryegrass to give you some perspective of how small it is compared to the wheat. It's just not growing all that much. And so, you know, I'm not as impressed with it right now, but the thing is wheat's gonna die here in August once that canopy gets nice and big, and apparently annual ryegrass handles it better. So that's why we went with annual ryegrass, and we'll just kind of monitor it this year to see how it does. Okay, so we're turned around here, and then we'll get headed to the other circle and dryland field that we ended up planting. I do love seeing this, other than the Palmer amaranth, where you have that section here where the corn planter didn't go, and you have all the rows of corn, or all the rows of cover crops growing in between the corn. I really like the way this looks as you go. Except for this, I'm just not a big fan of Palmer amaranth. I'm sure it's doing something for the soil, but I'm just so used to hating it as a weed that I'm not a fan. Okay guys, here we are at the dryland field. This field brings me sadness because of how dry it is out. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so a lot of this is just now germinating. You can see like this is the end of the field where I planted extra stuff here just to kind of give us cover. We're right by the road there. Anyway, some of this, we got an inch of rain last Wednesday, and so some of this is just now germinating. But as you come through here, not a lot you can actually see. There's one wheat plant right there. There's some more. So really, not a ton's germinated. It's kind of hard to see because of the glare. I'm on the wrong side of the field, but the corn plants are showing drought stress, and we got an inch of rain last Wednesday night. So this is Sunday, so that was less than a week ago, and you can see the leaves are just curling up and struggling. It's 104 right now, so that's part of it, but most of it is it's just so dang dry. So here's some more seeds that are coming up, more wheat that's coming through. There's a little bit more wheat germinating right in through here. I can't even tell what that is right now. I'm assuming that's going to be buckwheat coming up there, but if you look down the rows there, the wind picks up pretty good, so I'm going to voice over here, but basically I'm just talking about how you can't really see anything germinating very well, and hopefully after this rain some more stuff comes up, but it might just be a year that we don't get much results because of being in a drought, and we're gonna have to get fairly consistent rains, otherwise it'll just die without having that sub moisture profile. Our deeper profile is just empty. Within this context of dryland farming, I almost wonder if it wouldn't be better to get the cover crop planted. Here's some more stuff coming up here. I'm not sure it wouldn't be better to plant the cover crop closer to right after you planted your corn, or if you could figure out a way to plant your corn and your cover crop at a small rate together, just so that cover crop can get up and going and share micronutrients with the corn crop. Because that's, you know, one of the things I'm going to talk to you about, changing perspective of how our paradigm shifted. But before we talk about that, let's go look at the other irrigated circle. Okay guys, so here we are in the irrigated circle. You can tell where I'm at, the corn is fairly tall. So anyway, we interseeded this similar to the way we interseeded the first irrigated circle that we were at. And so this area right here is where we had some planter blight. And what I did was I went ahead and planted a garden in here, but this will kind of give you a good idea of what the cover crops would look like with full sunlight. On this one, you can see this is part of it that has the daikon radish in it and not the African cabbage. And so this would be the mix that has the annual ryegrass. And so here's a look at that annual ryegrass right here. Here's the flax. Let's see here, what else we got? Here's some clover right here. And I'm not seeing buckwheat, but I'm sure, oh, here's some buckwheat. Buckwheat right here. And then cowpeas right here. And then in this mix, we don't have any okra. So that would be pretty much what's in this specific mix. So on the other side of this particular circle is where we have the wheat base mix. And so on the north half of both circles, we got that wheat mix in, and on the south half, we got the annual ryegrass mix in. All these mixes went in at about 9 to 10 pounds. The planter kind of put it out different based on what the mix was in there. I think we were a little bit lighter on the annual ryegrass mix for whatever reason, and then we had that 11 pounds on where the wheat mix was. I will say I'm loving this. So I'll try to get a better look at this. Pulled up a pigweed and look at that giant earthworm in there. And you know, in 2020 you could find one or two earthworms if you dug a few spots, and now on this field, digging up every shovel, you're gonna have earthworms on every shovelful that you dig up. So kind of exciting to see the earthworm population bounce up so quickly, and seeing the jump there. Really excited about that. Okay, so just to give you guys some perspective, this is what last year's cover crop looked like during harvest time. Well guys, that's what we've got for the 2022 year on interseeding cover crops, the 2 irrigated circles and the dryland corn. But anyway, the main reason I wanted to put this video together was to talk about how our perspective has changed. We went from having a mindset that first year that we wanted to try interseeding cover crops into corn to increase the grazing days for our cattle. And in the last, well, since 2020, so the last 3 years, the perspective has changed to where I'm more focused on Dr. Christina Jones calls it the sociobiome within a plant. So basically the rhizosphere of a plant root system and the relationship it has with the microbes, specifically rhizobacteria, mycorrhizal fungus, and how the mycorrhizal fungus and rhizobacteria bring the plant the micronutrients that it needs. And so that's kind of why we're switching to, or not switching, but that's how our perspective is switching on our cover crops. I mean, yeah, I do want days of supplemental grazing after corn harvest. But what I'm really concerned with is building that soil health up, and I'm concerned about that for multiple reasons. One, I want to increase the filtration of our soils, and so you can't build your filtration without building aggregates. You can't build aggregates without exudates, and you don't produce exudates unless you have a healthy system with the bacteria in it that's going to stimulate those roots. And that's why we're using the Johnson Soup bioreactor and using compost extract. Is we want to stimulate that seed into putting out a ton of exudates right off the bat to stimulate the biology in the soil. And so, like, then it goes back to what I was talking about. Exudates create aggregates, aggregates create pore spacing, and it builds up your filtration. The other thing that we're focusing on is the sharing of micronutrients within plants, and eventually getting our corn to where we can do nutrient density testing and have a healthier corn crop. So let me kind of pull this out and show you what I'm talking about. When we're talking about that sociobiome with the plants, corn plant will not share micronutrients with another corn plant. Okay, so the corn plant, as it has its roots down in the system and it's putting out exudates and attracting mycorrhizal fungus and having a relationship with the other plants within its ecosystem, corn will not share micronutrients with corn, because corn sees corn as a competitor. But through the mycorrhizal fungus channels within our soil, the corn will see the daikon radish here, and we'll see the buckwheat here, and different species different than corn, and will share micronutrients within the other plants within its ecosystem underneath the soil that's connected by mycorrhizal fungus. So that's another reason why we're wanting to switch, or not switch, again, that's another reason why our paradigm or our thought process is switched from focusing on supplemental grazing to more focusing on, hey, how can we get our crops in the healthiest position possible so that we're growing healthier food for the consumer. So hopefully in the long run, that sharing of micronutrients and creating a more nutrient dense corn crop will pay off, and that there will be markets for that. But the immediate market, and the next thing I want to talk about, is saving the savings on nitrogen and phos. So within that sociobiome, and back to Dr. Christina Jones, if you watch those videos that Green Cover Seed put out with her in April of 2021, I recommend that you watch all those videos. The first one was the sociobiome. The next one was the phosphorus. I can't remember. It's about phosphorus, about how phosphorus is detrimental. Synthetic phos is detrimental to the soil, and then how nitrogen, the nitrogen solution, was the third video. But anyway, we don't need phos, synthetic phos in our systems. We've applied enough over the years, and that bank is stored up in our soils. We're only able to use 15% of it, and then phos has a negative charge to it, and so it binds to other elements in your soil that have a positive charge. I can't remember. I know it's calcium and something else, and it depends on how high your pHs are, what it binds to. But basically, we've eliminated phos last year. We didn't put any phos on this corn crop out here, and we used compost from the Johnson Sioux, to harvest that phos in the soil. And we're able to do that because we're building up our fungus and bacteria component by applying that compost extract. We have 600 and some species from the last soil or sample of our compost we sent off that is in our compost. And so those 600 species of bacteria and fungus make 87% of them make inorganic nitrogen plant available. I don't remember what percent made inorganic phos available, but those bacteria and those fungus are in that to do that. But I mean, we're able to do that with Johnson Sioux. But these plants, when you have a bunch of plants from different species, those plants are going to interact, and they're going to share micronutrients with other plants within their ecosystem. And then nitrogen, you know, in the nitrogen solution, Dr. Jones talks about how if you're applying more than 50% of nitrogen, or not 50%, if you're applying more than 50 pounds of nitrogen, then you're causing your roots to not produce exudates. And so you know, by doing this system, by using Johnson Sioux extract and by using multi-species cover crops that are able to share micronutrients, they're able to specialize in benefiting different species of bacteria and fungus, we're going to be able to reduce our input cost. And we've already eliminated FOS. My hope is that within next year we'll be able to cut back nitrogen to 50 pounds, 45 pounds, and be able to still raise a 200 plus, you know, bushel corn crop. And we've already raised a 200 bushel corn crop without any nitrogen or FOS last year by interseeding cover crops and by applying compost from Johnson Sioux bioreactors. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I think it's important to get that information out and to talk about it. And I think it's important for farmers to share what they're doing and what their thought processes are and what they're learning. I really appreciate Green Cover Seeds for putting together those videos with Dr. Jones. And to me, it's really important as a farmer to watch those videos. They often have a video with Dr. James White talking about endophytes and how endophytes are transfixed into the rhizosphere and how they bring up beneficial fungus and bacteria and how those fungus actually grow even within the stomata of the leaves. And so anyway, I encourage you guys to go watch those videos that Green Cover Seed put out, and I'll try to keep you guys updated on how interseeding cover crops goes this year and what we're seeing this year, and how I feel, you know, cereal rye or annual ryegrass compares to the wheat in the difference in what we did in the fields. So thanks for watching today's video.